Modi is going to be speaking next. I think he's going to be speaking in a few minutes. My own guess is here that he's going to be very, very statesmanlike, because there are many positives of Narendra Modi not responding to Pakistan on Kashmir. Principally, that India believes that Kashmir's status itself is not under question. It is a given that Kashmir is an integral part of India, and the world today does not need a reiteration about its status from India each time at the UN General Assembly. In fact, if we've done so in the past, we've fallen into the Pakistani trap. This time we can move beyond.
More importantly, there's the element which goes against the basic Indian stand, that this is a bilateral issue that needn't be internationalized.
Completely.
By the Indian Prime Minister making a show and dance about it in the United Nations, who can then say that we didn't internationalize it? I mean, if you go back into the history of Kashmir, we brought it to the United Nations. Pakistan didn't. And the encouragement from the British at that time that they'll get it settled in our favor. But as you know, the British, as history shows, they've paid both sides of the coin. But more importantly, I think we are expecting from Mr. Modi's speech at the UN that Mr. Modi is going to talk about the big picture, where India would like to fit into the global scheme of things. Mr. Obama has clearly set the agenda for the UN on two issues. One is a battle against terrorism, not exactly a battle against Islam, but battle against those who use religion to perpetuate terror. And also,
and just quick update. Those are pictures just a while back, a few minutes back, of Narendra Modi meeting Ban Ki-moon and going into his bilateral. So, sorry to interrupt you there, Maruf, I'm sure Mr. Modi realizes this is his first big play on the global stage, and he need not have his narrative at the UNGA determined by or shaped in any way by what Pakistan says. I think he's going to try and say, I want to move beyond, and I want to establish India's reputation as a functioning democracy with the people of Kashmir exercising their rights in every election. That's a given. It's not something which Modi needs to re-emphasize now at the UNGA.
Mr. Modi himself is an example of how well Indian democracy works. I mean, here is a man who has come up with from a humble background and risen to the top. And what continues to surprise me about Mr. Modi is that he plays the game globally without a fault. I mean, in the last 100 days, he has taken all the right steps diplomatically, and considering the fact that here was a man who didn't have enough diplomatic experience, as it were. I mean, a good administrator, good at governance, good at political issues domestically, but the international game, as is often made out by snooty diplomats, is a difficult game to play. Only they apparently know the tricks of the game. But I think Mr. Modi has beaten them all to it, and he has really played the card straight from his heart. And I think at the United Nations also, Mr. Modi is going to speak straight from his heart. He is going to bring the picture out that this is the India that you can look forward to doing business with over the next 5, if not 10 years. And here is the agenda of where India fits into the world's scheme of things.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we are a few minutes away from Narendra Modi's speech at the UNGA. He's going to be the next speaker. That's 15 minutes. General Shankar Roy Chaudhary was there from Kolkata. Sir, good morning from New York. Good evening to you in Kolkata. I thought I saw Sushant Sareen there. Was that you, Sushant Sareen? I mean, you are so distinguished, it couldn't be anyone else. Yes, it is you, Sushant Sareen, unless it was a look-alike. Good morning from Maruf and me in New York, Sushant Sareen in New Delhi, General Shankar Roy Chaudhary in Kolkata. To you, General Shankar Roy Chaudhary, this is a great opportunity, isn't it? And by the way, Navika Kumar still at the UN, so this is full-on coverage. This is a great opportunity. Modi, if he does not respond to Pakistan on Kashmir, it will only serve to reinforce that Kashmir at the UN is an irrelevant matter. And what a better time to make it irrelevant than when a new government takes stage. Okay, Navika has an update. Sorry, before I come to you, Navika has an update from the UN. Yes, Navika.
That's right, Arnab. Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, is the next speaker after this particular speech is over. That's the information I've got from the officials who are inside in the entire entourage with the Prime Minister. Narendra Modi's speech is slated to be the next one after this speech is over. So that's the update that we are getting from inside. So it could be anything between the next 10 to 12 minutes.
Okay. Okay, Navika, coming back to you. General Shankar Roy Chaudhary, what should Modi do now? As far as Kashmir is concerned, should this speech really reduce Kashmir to irrelevance, or should he respond to Sharif?
Arnab, I think we are getting a little spoilt. We want the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, to pull a rabbit out of the hat on every possible occasion. So I think he is going to speak on the subject. I do hope he doesn't talk about Kashmir. That's all I can say. I do hope he doesn't talk about Kashmir, because as far as we are concerned, Kashmir is where it is and we moved beyond it. And I hope, as there was some discussion earlier on your and other channels, that the best thing for him would be to move on. Kashmir is there and it is sorted out. The world has seen the way we reacted to the floods in Srinagar. Kashmir is very much a part of India. Kashmiris are very much a part of India. So let's get a move on. Let's move on beyond it. And I do hope he doesn't talk about Kashmir. But then whatever he does, as I said, we are getting spoilt. We are expecting our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, to pull a rabbit out of the hat on every occasion. So let's see what he does this time.
Well, you can't blame it. Modi is a person who has raised expectations at any level. So I don't think anyone will plead guilty to high expectations from Modi. But I see a very strong nodding of the head from Sushant Sareen. So Sushant, I presume, does not believe that silence on the Kashmir issue is the strongest rebuff to Pakistan's claims. Sushant.
No, it's a good way of contemptuously dismissing the kind of rant which we heard from Mr. Nawaz Sharif. So one argument could be that. But I believe that in the international diplomatic field, you should not leave a clear, open field on any occasion. Now, I agree with my fellow panelists that, to now speak too much about Kashmir would actually be playing on Pakistan's pitch. But there is another alternative viewpoint to this whole thing, which is that, we constantly say that we don't want to internationalize it. But when one side internationalizes it and you don't respond adequately, it's okay to have a junior guy go and dismiss Nawaz Sharif's rant. But when you don't do it at the top level, you leave the field open in a manner of speaking to the other side, and I don't think you should do that. That does not mean that like Nawaz Sharif spoke, half of his speech was India related, whether it was the nuclear issue, deterrence and all that crap, whether it was about the UN Security Council expansion, whether it was about force equilibrium, conventional force equilibrium, or it was about Kashmir. Half of it was about India, so he was being India centric. We don't need to respond in kind, but I think a sentence or two dismissing everything which this guy said would be in the order of thing, but that's my feeling. As far as what Mr. Modi is going to say, frankly, Arnab, I lost a lot of money on 15th August when he didn't speak about tanks but started talking about toilets. So, frankly, he pulls a rabbit out of his hat every time, and he invariably surprises all of us. And it is quite possible he might do something similar this time around.
I tell you, you surprised me too, Sushant, and that's I thought today would be one of those days when you and Maruf would be standing on the same at the same position and saying ignore, because Maruf's critical point since yesterday has been
on the same
ignore. Maruf's point has been, if I gather from what he said, and he's having this strange influence on my thinking, maybe because he's in physical proximity in New York. Maruf seems to have, sort of confounded the whole situation since yesterday by telling everyone, don't play into Pakistan's hands. Don't allow the spotlight to be on the issue. It will lead to the perception that India's script depends on what Pakistan says. But Maruf, Sushant disagrees with you. Sushant says that India cannot be seen not to react. Especially when issues of a plebiscite have been gone to in such detail.
I have great respect for Mr. Shireen's opinion, and we've generally been on the same page on most issues. But what I'm not saying that Mr. Modi is going to give it a complete skip, but I'm just saying that to deliberate and get stuck on that old record like Pakistan did would exactly be falling into the trap that Pakistan wanted him and India to fall in.
But Sharif has spoken, for example, about Kashmiris living, quote-unquote, under occupation. And he's spoken about human rights abuses in the state. So the other view is that, Modi's silence would be construed as India not having an effective counter. As Sushant says, you can't put a junior guy up there and expect him to speak for the country.
What I've been saying all along, I said it yesterday also after Mr. Sharif's speech, that Modi would respond in probably a sentence or two, but don't expect him to make that one of the pillars of his speech. What Mr. Modi is, to my understanding, is going to do, this is his coming out party.
That's Madison Square. It is his coming out party.
No, I think it precedes.
UNGA is not a coming out party. UNGA is a...
See, Madison's, let's face it, Madison Square Gardens, he's going to address about 3 million Indians that make up the diaspora here.
That's right.
I mean, that's the most at max. But here at the United Nations, you're talking to 194 countries. And out of 194 countries,
more so,
Navika gives us to understand, at least 115, if not 125, are sympathetically inclined towards India's position on a number of issues. And therefore, they want a greater articulation from India.
Okay, so I'm getting a quick news update. Want to tell our viewers that we have some little insight on what's going on on what's gone on in the meeting with Ban Ki-moon, and we are told, Navika, that Modi raised the issue of combating terrorism in his meeting with Ban Ki-moon, and also that he referred to Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's remarks on Kashmir. We don't know exactly what he said out there, but he did, I'm told, make some reference to Nawaz Sharif's remarks on Kashmir. We don't know. I mean, if the references were to be made, Navika, presumably they would be made by Mr. Modi. That conversation point would be initiated by Mr. Modi, unless that conversation point would be initiated by the UN Secretary General. I don't think the UN Secretary General would
as far as the UN is concerned,
would pick up that
as
piece
far as the UN
own.
is concerned, they have more or less made it known it's a closed issue.
Yeah, so exactly.
And since the last 5, if not 10 years, Kashmir has been completely off the UN's agenda, except the terror groups that continue to hibernate in Pakistan and are linked to fomenting terror in India and elsewhere under the pretext of Pakistan's strategic asset towards the Kashmir issue.
You know, many people have many different views on this whole matter. Sushant will come back to you on that. Navika was wanting to respond to it. But for a prime minister from a party, I'm also looking at the political angle to this, Navika. From a prime minister who comes from a party that has called for the abrogation of Article 370, not to reaffirm Kashmir's status vis-a-vis India at the UN, could, some people say, have political implications. And you have opposition there that is waiting to see what Mr. Narendra Modi says. And Navika, we've been making this point of late, that the Congress party has suddenly developed a newfound muscularity in its foreign policy approach since Manmohan Singh gave up the chair.
The Congress party,